What was it that you think made Louisiana an epicenter of coronavirus?
New Orleans every year, the Mardi Gras season goes for 2 to 3 weeks and it attracts international visitors, people from all over the country and all over the world. And of course, when you get them all in that city, they pack them in real tight and you're watching parades and you're having a good time. And I think that helped. It kind of created an extraordinary breeding ground for the virus. And so what we saw was, I think, a product of the Mardi Gras carnival season.
You may be able to help me understand something. The mayor of New Orleans tried to blame President Trump for the coronavirus problem and for not shutting down Mardi Gras. Now, I was scratching my head and thinking the president doesn't control Mardi Gras. The mayor of New Orleans does. Where in the world does that come from? Help me understand that.
What Democrats do is basically blame Trump for everything. A couple of days ago, I told someone, the president could cure cancer and kill a devil in one shot, and they'd find fault with that. Look, at the end of the day, we need to concentrate on saving lives and conquering this invisible enemy, not going out there and laying blame, which is what she was doing. I can tell you that this was, the mayor is part of the same party that criticized the president for closing travel between Asia and the United States at the early stage. Remember, they called him a racist, said that there was no reason for him to do so.
You, as Attorney General, certainly are on the front lines of balancing health concerns and civil liberties. I want to discuss how you view this and at what point have we sort of moved across this line of violating people's constitutional rights in the name of public safety. Are we there yet? Are we getting there? And how do we repair that once we've done it?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is go back to having everyone understand their civic responsibility. A lot of times I've told on conference calls with either pastors or other groups that are concerned about that is that, look, just because you have a constitutional right to do something doesn't mean that you should do it or you should exercise it all of the time. We should all have restraint in these particular times and use common sense. It's one of the things that I've continued to try to preach out there to the masses is that, look, let's just use a little bit of common sense.
I want to move on to another topic we mentioned in the introduction, and that's the Supreme Court hearing that you've recently had. I commend you for being consistent in protecting human life. And recently, Louisiana decided, as other states have, that abortion is not an essential service, and that, in fact, abortion clinics should operate under the same laws that any other health provider does. Please describe why this case has such tremendous implications, not just for Louisiana, but all over the country.
Well, first of all, I believe that everything begins with life. You can have no liberty without life. And so what we want to ensure is that there is not a exception to abortion. In other words, they don't get a special treatment. They don't get an additional right. We are going to treat them just like we treat all other healthcare providers in Louisiana. That was the case before the Supreme Court. And if I'm not mistaken, that was actually the last case that the Supreme Court heard orally this term before the COVID-19 crisis began. And all that case does is simply say, look, in Louisiana, we want to be able to regulate abortion clinics the same way we regulate all other clinics, in that doctors have to have admitting privileges. Just like when you go and take your child to an outpatient clinic to maybe get tubes put in his ears, those doctors are required to have admitting privileges. It's the same thing, or should be the same thing, that abortion clinics should be under as well.